Hi guys, you're watching Total Carp Fishing TV, and today I'm going to be running through the two new Siren alarms from Nash. So close to me here you've got the larger and higher spec R4, and then you've also got the much more affordable R2 alarm. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through all the features of these alarms, the similarities, the differences, so that you can decide which one's right for you. Now, as you can see with the R3 for comparison, the R2 is about the same sort of size, with the R4 being distinctively larger. So the functionality between the two alarms is pretty similar. You've got the main alarm head, you've got removable snag ears. All the functions are controlled via these two push buttons on the front of the alarm. And then you've also got the indicator attachment, which is just a thread on the R2. And then you've actually got an electronic bayonet fitting on the R4, but we'll go into that in more detail shortly. So with both of the alarms, you use the left button here to turn the alarm on. Simply hold it down, and that turns the alarm on. On the R4 it's the same. There we go, and that's on. So the R2's got 4 volume settings, from the lowest through to the loudest. The R4 in comparison has 8 volume settings, once again controlled by the simple push button on the right. The on-off button on the left also functions as a mute button, so a single press on the R2 puts it into mute, so that when you're dealing with your bobbins and everything, you can just mute the alarm, and then you can turn it back on, and you've got the volume there as you'd set before. Now on the R4 this is a little bit different because you've actually got multiple mute options. You've got the alarm on, you've got the alarm with the lights on but no sound, you've got sound but no lights, and then you've got no lights and no sound. Both the alarms have 5 colour settings, which can be done by holding down the X button and then pressing and cycling through the colours with the on button. So hold that down, blue, purple, white, red, green, and back to blue again. Now as you can see on the R2 there's just a single LED, and then here on the R4 you've actually got 2 LEDs, and these are wraparound LEDs too, so you can actually see the colour of the LEDs when they're on from all different angles, even when your rod's there. So you never have that thing where you look down at your rod and you can't quite make out which rod it is, because you'll be able to see exactly which one it is from any angle. So I'll just show that here. Press the X button and then the on button. And an interesting point to point out there as well is that each of those colours has 2 brightness settings. So you can go for a brighter setting during the day and then put it a little bit dimmer at night if you so wish. The tone settings are then controlled in the opposite way to the colour setting, where you hold down the on button and cycle through with the X button. Now the R2's got 5 tone settings and the R4 has got 8 tone settings. Now we get onto the different sensitivity settings of the 2 alarms, and this is where they're wildly different, and the R4 really takes technology to a whole new level. But we'll start off with the R2, which has 6 sensitivity settings between 10mm and 85mm, and that's controlled with the X button here. You simply hold it down and you can cycle through the different settings. So this will be the lowest sensitivity on 1. If I just press it again, it will go through sensitivity 6. So as I mentioned, the R4's sensitivity settings are wildly different to most roller wheels that you'll find on the market. Now it features the speed sensing that the R3 became famous for, but takes this to a whole new level. So we'll run through those settings now. You've effectively got 5 different sensitivity settings. On sensitivity setting 1, it's a standard roller wheel of high sensitivity. So regardless of speed, you get a very, very quick response from the alarm. And what you might have noticed there as well is that not only do you get a forward motion, but you get an independent reverse motion for drop back sensing. Now cleverly, Nash have used drop back sensing with a dual tone, so even if you've got all your different alarms in different tones, from higher to lower, the actual drop back tone is completely different. So the forward tone is an individual tone, and then on the reverse, that's a completely different dual tone to any of the forward motions. On sensitivity settings 2 and 3, which are your speed sensing, so sensitivity 2 and 3. Now these feature the speed sensing with the drift safeguard, and basically what that means is that the amount that they beep depends on how fast the line moves over them. So if it's slow, you get a few beeps, and then as it speeds up, the beeps become quicker and quicker. Now, the drift sensing basically means that if you're fishing somewhere and you're getting bits of weed collecting on your line and it's slowly creeping your bobbins up, you don't want to be getting beeps all the way through the night as more and more is collecting on your line. What that'll do is effectively cancel out those bleeps. So really, really slow motion, it won't beep at all. But if you suddenly get a little twitch, you get your indication through that. Now, the next two settings are settings 4 and 5, which are your wave sensing. So that effectively means that when you're on a boat or if you've got waves coming through, you're not going to continuously get false beeps. So the first setting's at 15 centimetres and the second setting's at 30 centimetres, and that effectively means that you get a safeguard of motion backwards and forth, and then once it pulls beyond that point, it goes back into the super high sensitivity roller. So if I put on sensitivity 4, you get, no matter how fast that weed's going backwards and forth, you're never going to get any sort of indication, but as soon as a fish picks up your rig and moves off, you're then back into that super sensitivity roller. And like I said, sensitivity 5 is just an even longer version of that. Say you're on a boat with your alarm strapped to the back of the boat's going up and down, your line's going all over the place. Effectively, it'll stop you from getting all of those false bleeps. But when a carp finally picks it up, takes the line, that's going to kick back into the sound of the alarm. So now we'll run through just a few more of the key features of the R4, which really makes it a standout alarm. The first bit of innovative new technology is the guiding light at the back, which can be used as a bit of a homing beacon for boat anglers, so that whilst your alarms are on the bank, you can have that glowing gently, so whilst you're out in the boat on the lake, you can see exactly where your kit is, make a beeline straight back to your swim. Now, in the emergency, you can also control that to come on and flash as a homing beacon from your receiver, so that if you ever get lost out in the lake, say you're blown off course or something, and you need to find out where your alarms are, you can utilise that function then. So as I mentioned earlier, rather than a screw fitting for attaching your bobbins, you've actually got an mmcx electrical bayonet fitting, which provides an electric output to power the night glow bobbins. So effectively, when you get an indication on your alarm, that'll pulse and glow on the indicator itself. The alarm also comes with an mmcx converter which fits into the bayonet fitting, which effectively turns it into a screw fitting for those of you that just want to use standard bobbins. On closer inspection, you'll also notice that the R4 has more of a soft touch sort of finish to the R2 and the older R3, and in combination with this sort of ribbed rod rest area, what you effectively get is real good grip on your rod so that you don't get any creep on the take. So the two different alarms take two different batteries, so if we spin them around there, in the R2 alarm it takes a CR2 battery, which are the smaller little dinky batteries, and then in the R4 you've got two AAA batteries, which is really handy because they're readily available from any sort of shop or supermarket. Both alarms come with a protective soft rubber case, which simply slips over the top there, and both alarms also have receivers as well, so we'll take a look at those now. So now let's talk about the two receivers, starting off with the R2. As you can see, it's a nice, compact, simple little receiver. You've got a single button on the front, which you can use to toggle through the functions, and then you've got a little dial on the back, which both turns the receiver on and also controls the volume. So if I just turn the dial on the back, turns the receiver on, I can turn up the volume a little bit, and I've actually got it paired here into channel 1. And that has a really accurate representation, both on the timing between the alarm and the receiver, but also it actually replicates both the colour and the tone. So if you change either of those on the alarm head itself, that then also changes on the receiver. So if I change the tone, that changes on the receiver as well. And like I said, that's the same for colour too. Pairing between the receiver and the alarms, as I mentioned, is controlled through the function button, and it's got a really good range on it, ensuring great connection between the alarm head and the receiver itself. So that's all there really is to say about the R2. Like I said, it's nice, compact, functional and simple to use. Now moving on to the larger, more powerful R4 receiver. So here it is, the R4 receiver, and as you can see there's a lot more going on than with the R2 receiver. Now it's got a really high power transmission, meaning that you get good accurate signal at over 750 metres. Now you normally wouldn't be anywhere near that distance from your rods, but what that does mean is that you get high quality signal even through really dense foliage. But that's also really handy as well for those people fishing large inland seas, huge venues on the continent where they're boating out their baits at extreme ranges, and that signal makes sure that you're going to know everything that happens on your other rods that are back at base camp. Now operating the receiver, you've got a simple on-off button here, so just holding it down to turn it on, and you can see there's 5 LEDs along the top. Now that's 4 LEDs to pair with your alarms, and then there's a 5th LED there. So if you've got multiple mates fishing the same venue, you can pair your mates' alarms to the buddy channel, and that means if they get a take, you know that you can go and give them a hand. You've then got volume control here, and there's 8 different volume settings. You've then also got various mute and vibration modes. So that's controlled by this little V button here. So that's no sound but just vibration. No sound or vibration, just the LED. Sound and vibration, and then back to just sound. You then also got an anti-theft function, which simply holding down that button there, when it's paired with the alarm, if someone turns your alarm off, it lets out a really, really high-pitched tone. Now, I'm not actually going to do that now because there's other people fishing on the lake and I don't want to annoy them. Finally, you've got that homecoming mode, which utilises that same high-power transmission, meaning that even if you've been blown way off course whilst out in the boat, up to 750 metres away, if you hold down that button, it will set off that homing beacon on the back of the R4 alarm. So you can look out there in the darkness to the horizon and you'll see that little light on the back of the alarm, and that'll give you something that you can home back in on. As with the R2 receiver, the tone and the colour of the LEDs perfectly matches the alarm head itself. So if you ever change those, change the colour or change the tone on the alarm head itself, that will be replicated in the receiver. Now when it comes to batteries, the R2 receiver utilises the same CR123 battery that the R3 receiver used. But with the R4 receiver, they've actually gone with a USB-C rechargeable battery, which I personally think is a really, really great touch, because it means that you can charge that up on your power pack if it ever gets low. Now I say if it ever runs out, because this receiver's got about 20 weeks of continuous run time. Now most people don't fish for 20 weeks at a time, so you're always going to be able to charge that in between. But it's also got a low power signal as well, so you know if it is getting low and you've not recharged it in the meantime, that you can start charging it again. The great thing as well is that actually recharging this is super quick too, taking just 4 hours to fully recharge the receiver. So I think you'll agree there that in terms of functionality and being user friendly, this really is a fantastic bit of kit. So there you go, that's all the tech spec that you're really going to need to know about the two new Siren alarms, the R2 and the R4. That should give you a good idea of what each of the alarms do and the differences between them, and then taking into account the prices of them, that should give you a good idea of which alarm is the right one for you. Hope you've enjoyed.